Hi guys, my name is Nitin Sachdeva and I'm from Meeting Means Business India. Today we want to kick off this education series where we want to bring you options that are available to companies in the travel and tourism domain. We witnessed impeccable webinar that was moderated by Mr. Ashish Kumar. That's why he's joining us today from the industry standpoint, where he had mentioned that the businesses post-COVID will have opportunities to collaborate, merge, and a lot of opportunities to work together. So I want to bring him to really speak about what did he mean and how we can elaborate that. By the way, Ashish Kumar is an evangelist, a thought leader in the industry with more than 40 years experience, and he's been in CXO positions for many large travel brands in the industry. And we have also brought in Mr. Avijit Banerjee, who is the CEO and Managing Director for Argon Capital Advisors. It's a management consulting firm, and he's been in that space for about 20 plus years, advising firms on options available on getting funded, getting capital access, and also regulatory framework on how it can professionally be handled. So Ashish, I would like to bring you in to really elaborate on your point. So you can explain when you meant that there will be opportunities of working collectively in the industry. What did you mean by that?
So although the virus started off in December in Wuhan, China, and started spreading the world over in January and February, the Indian market as such really took notice of it in March. So that phase, to me, was a phase of a shock and awe. So it caught the industry with what you can term it as a shock and awe. Once the period of shock and awe went off, then came the period of introspection. Now what do we do? And now I see the industry moving beyond introspection to an execution mode, which means, okay, now that it's happened, what do we do to take it forward and carry on with our lives if we can? So that is the part which is now we are addressing, and it's broken into two parts. One is a clear survival mode, that we are in a business of tour operating, be it in inbound, be it in outbound, be it in MICE, be it in corporate travel. How do we survive the times? And the second, of course, is once we survive the times, obviously we will revive for the better. If we don't survive the time, then we are not there.
Right.
So therefore, what you need to do is you need to break your journey into various steps. I would say first break it, because you're into a financial new year of April, right? First break it into first 6 months. And in the first 6 months, take your revenue as zero. And then you re-engineer your cost based on the first 6 months being zero. Whether it's moratorium on loans, whether it's a reduction of GST, or whether deferment of GST, whether reduction in staff costs, lease, renegotiation of costs, build your business plan for the first 6 months with key actionable items. These are the 5 things I need to do for this first 6 months. Then you come into the next 6 months bracket. And that's in the first 6 months, you should have carved yourself a new business plan for this financial year, for the next 12 months, with re-engineered costs, with the re-engineered revenue from the market, re-looking at your debtors, re-looking at everything. And then that determines what's the kind of cash flow you need in your business to be able to run your business, because cash is drying up. That's the bottom line. Where are you going to get the cash? Are you going to get it from your friends, relatives, well-wisher, or you got enough in the bank and reserves in your company to be able to pump it back, or you're going to be able to borrow? Borrow from where? So therefore, funding is a need of a cash flow which you need to look at. And you can be sure when you build your funding, you need to remodel your cash flow because be it hotels, be it airline, be it your suppliers, they're going to be also demanding everything upfront when you make your booking. So it's not something that I have a pipeline of 6 months or 3 months or 1 month to pay my suppliers. So therefore, look at from an objective that you got to be paying everything upfront and see what kind of cash you need in the business. And you arrange the cash. Like I said, you arrange the cash either from a bank or from a funding entity. And I think Avijit would talk more about that as to how that can be done. So now, while you've made that business plan, while you've seen what kind of cash you need, always carry a thought behind collaboration and not competing. If you see, our travel industry is so fragmented that you would have tour operators, travel agents fighting for the same market, same pie, same distribution, same everything, and killing each other. I think the time of killing each other is gone, when I use that word loosely. It's more collaborate. Now, the collaboration is based on your business plan and your fund requirement. Because you would say, I've got enough funds now, I don't need to collaborate. I'll continue the way I am. Or you would say, no, why don't three of us friends? And obviously the friends are not only friends in terms of having a drink together, but friends in terms of who bring synergies on the table. So you merge in a manner, and the merger could be a total structured M&A, or it could be a loosely held alliance where each one helps each one out to be able to create a larger entity. Look at, for example, Make My Trip and Go IB merger. It was a cashless merger, but I think it may be a very large merger, but for me, it was an ideal situation where the bloodbath, which was happening on the marketing side of the hotels, was be able to cut down. Something with the industry is always run away and thought was a cost, has to be forgotten as a cost, and that's technology. And technology is not just saying, oh, I'll have a CRM, I'll have a web base. That's passé. You have to go beyond just CRMs and website. Today, you have to go into emerging technologies. You've got to get yourself ready. So the part of your 2-year survival and revival package will have to consist of embracing technology, getting your staff ready for technology, and moving forward into a new world.
Yeah. So you are suggesting that, there'll be an environment where there'll be opportunity to actually companies come together, and because they're targeting the same market, and they are delivering the same product, to come together, maybe have a mergeable action plan, but they have to really do it in a formal manner so that they can get access to capital in together, isn't it?
No, well, first you should have your action plan of your own company.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have an action plan of your own company, how do I know that you and I have a synergy to work together? And lastly, I'll just say, if you look at the demographics of the industry, especially the inbound industry, the promoters are very age-driven. And if you look across and do a survey, you'll find very few next generations are there. So you really want to see that, would they be exiting? Do they want to, at the age of 60, start all over again? Or they say, we have had enough, we want to exit out. But even exiting has a process. You can't tomorrow decide you want to exit out. There has to be somebody you can merge with, somebody who should take over. But for that also, you need to create a plan and a viability.
Sure.
So that is what I'm.
I would want to bring in Avijit Banerjee from Argon. Avijit, as Ashish mentioned, that there is a need of making a plan, and there is a need of making a plan to actually access capital and your requirements for the next 1 year. You being in this domain, of helping companies, what are the options available for the travel and tourism industry going forward?
First of all, Nitin, thank you for having me on this positivity campaign. And Ashish, thank you so much for setting this theme. And you have beautifully covered and summarized basically the problems and the practical problems that this industry is facing. So I'll just take the cue from what Ashish left, and then I'll come to more conclusively to answer your part of the question. The first is that you have to see the kind of impact it has happened with the COVID-19. It's very catastrophic to the businesses, which means henceforth, once in the post-COVID-19 scenario, the way business are going to be conducted will not be the same as it has been up until now, because the challenges are different, and you cannot be relying on the tools and the skill sets and the kind of thought process innovation that you have up until now. So it needs a different war game. It needs a different strategy to counter each of them all. Revival is secondary. The first challenge here is that, how do I continue to exist? How do I continue to breathe? Once the lockdown opens up and we are trying to recover from what we have lost. It's like resetting the whole button. So now, with those challenges in place, I think the economic recovery and the businesses from all sectors, it's going to be extremely long-drawn recovery, and travel is going to be the last to recover, because every industry or every sector are going to be very cost conscious going forward. Now, the kind of thing which has evolved is that they are prioritizing things which is the most essential right now, and keeping everything else for a later stage, only if you have enough cash to survive for that. In terms of options that they have available right now, I would say, which is a bootstrap funding. When you say a bootstrap funding is a very quick incubation fund, which will, it can be as low as 50 lakhs to 1 CR to as high as 7 CR, let's say, which can set the ball rolling. With that, you can deploy to immediately, execute it and, and deploy it to those actionable points and items, which will help you to manage your inventory better, manage you to plan your revenue forecast better, your marketing schemes better, so that there's a traction coming from the client side. There are a lot of institutions that does that, and that is where we have helped in the past also in closing a deal as fast as within 2 to 3 weeks, where you can get a emergency fund. But again, you have to remember that while the demand for funding is going exponentially up for the sector and for all sectors in general, the institution on the other side, which is the supplier of the cash or the supplier of the money, they're also sitting with coppers, so they're also under immense pressure to deploy that fund. They cannot be sitting on idle fund because they're also accountable. So, which I think one good thing that is coming out of it here is that the rigidity which was there before the COVID-19 scenario, I'm seeing that going to be relaxed a little bit. So they will not be as rigid as they were before. So they would be willing to consider, they may not be going with the exact, robotic binary number 0 or 1. If it is yes or a no, they might consider what if. That question will get into the funding part of it, right? So to ensure that, the good businesses which are capable of going through it doesn't suffer because their past something is not in shape as of today. So, but then a lot of things depends on it cannot be very, very menu driven. It has to be customized. It has to be concept based. That is where the story has to be conveyed to the investor fraternity, that what kind of value they can deliver. As Ashish pointed out, that you keep the immediate 2 years plan ready, which is your October 2020 to March 21, and then again from your October 21 to March 22. So if these 2 years, which the 6 months, which is very critical for the sector, if that is ready and if you're very clear what you want to do, that is something which I think which earlier has not found its way through, might find its way through. So having said that, doesn't mean that they are going to entertain any business that comes through. No, that is where I think they would have to, the industry, they may be expert in their own domain, but they may not be knowing how to reach out and present the story, what needs to be done, what are the steps to be taken forward. That is why they would need a friend in this need of hour, someone who would hold their hand, guide them through the process and get the fund needed for that. So once the fund comes in, right, then comes the second phase of getting a larger fund, which can be through a private equity, can be through a financial institution where you actually go through project-based funding. That will support your expansion, acquisition, whichever way you look into it. Right? That phase we come into it, and that is where the revival kicks off. Now, once the revival kicks off, that there are companies who are willing to join hands. As Ashish said, that let's not be competing with each other. Let's be friends rather than be a foe in the ecosystem. Right? You earn, me, let me also earn, and together I think we can do a better job rather than killing each other's business. So that is a consolidation. It's very, very in the offing that we see. So the opportunity to collaborate with each other. Now that collaboration may not just be simple, a cash swap or stock option swap, the stock swap kind of a merger. It can also be alliances in terms of market synergies. Let's say, let me put an instance that a company A versus a company B doesn't need to take over. They don't need to financially merge in the books of the accounts. They can still be a friend without getting, merging their books of accounts by having a marketing alliances or alliances in the customer front, that this is a geography we are going to target, or somewhere, there's a vertical integration, a vertical synergies coming out. So you are complementing rather than competing, you're complementing your competitor now, and then together you are growing that is how the industry is going to evolve. So merger, while they're going to happen, yes, a consolidation is in the offing, but in addition to that, I'm also seeing a lot of non-cash merger on the plate. That is where, to find the right partner who can help me sell my businesses out, who can help me, bring in a more better technology product. So these kind of alliances are also coming up, not just from the financial perspective. The third part comes is that this is the time when the businesses are going to consider that if I'm already a star player or one of the big fish, like a Make My Trip or a Yatra or a Clear Trip, they might see some quick acquisition opportunities. That is, so a consolidation can also happen through that. That's one. Second is that exit opportunity. When I say exit opportunity, is that now a question would come: should we stay in a particular category of a business? I'm not saying the entire company is per se, but you are doing A, B, C, D, E. My question at this point of time is that should we focus only on A, B, C and do away with D and E, or should we focus only on A and B and do away with C, D, and E kind of an element? So basically, the SBU hiving off and giving it to that person who would be able to better synergize with their company once they integrate that. So the opportunities are coming in a way where we can actually help them, the marriages to happen in any way they want or any other combination they want. So it may not just always be a pure plain vanilla company A taking over company B or company A merging with company B. The marriages can happen in bits and parts, just to ensure that not only it guarantees survival, but it also ensures that you're able to revive and then take the challenges. Now you're emerging more strong because the skill set that you are joining hands with the other competitor is making you more strong, and you are able to cross leverage each other's capabilities. So that's the third part of it. The fourth is, which I think is going to be very important going forward, is when, specifically from a funding point of view, when you try to access fund, whether it's a bootstrap fund, whether it's a project-based funding, whether it's a private equity, whether it's a sell-off, whether you're going for an IPO, whichever way, is that how nicely or how optimal is the capital structure? Am I too leveraged right now? Is it pushing me more towards a default risk? Tomorrow, another unfortunate incident is going to happen. Let's say, if it were to happen, will it throw me into a default risk or not? So the capital structuring in this case is very, very important, and that needs a constant, guidance from someone who understands the subject domain better, rather than those who are an entrepreneur. They should not focus over that. They should get someone to help them out in the capital structuring process. So my suggestion to the entire fraternity from the travel sector would be that it is also the right time that you go back to the drawing board or try to visit that your capital doesn't look very risky to an investor, so that they should not shy away from funding you, even though you have a good plan or even though you have a good capability. Because sometimes, riskiness of a certain asset, riskiness of a capital can be a mood killer for the investor. Even though everything falls good, they also are driven by certain compliances, certain checks where they have to say no. While I agree, I have said that, the rigidity, I'm forcing it to be getting relaxed a lot. But even then, certain level of checks would be there where, we will have to clear through those checks only to make it sure that my proposal gets accepted to an investor, and that investor provides me the much needed funds that we have today. Okay? And the last part comes after the fund comes in. What next? That is where the post-funding support comes. Right now, there are the small scale sector, basically the small and medium sector, may not be having a full-time on the payroll expensive management support, right? So as and when they get the fund, they should try to have a management advisory services where they're able to tell you that this is the way to reach out. And if something is going wrong, they're able to highlight and flag it off. The fundraising process, whether it's a quick fund or the private equity or getting a cash swap through a merger, it's very, very disciplined, and it requires a rigorous, and it's very rigorous as well. It requires a lot of homework to be done. It's not, on the face of it, it may look very fancy. It's not. It requires patience at its end, to the core. and it requires the right skill sets to be deployed into it, which means you need a proper business plan, you need a proper cash flow projection, where each of the assumptions gets questioned by the investor as to how you're arriving at this number, right? If you're not able to answer that properly to an investor, that is where the opportunity is lost. And therefore, I keep emphasizing on that. When it comes to the entrepreneurs who are seeking fund, they should focus and remain focused on their business and the product. Something which is not their cup of tea, they should not try to venture. Otherwise, because that opportunity with one investor, it comes only once but in lifetime. You cannot go for the second time again with the same pitch. So it needs a proper business plan. It needs a robust and realistic cash flow projections, where every question is being answered through the assumptions being used into it, right? And third is the writing of the investment thesis. This is very, very important as to why I'm going to put money into company ABC or company XYZ. That investment thesis summarizes as to, this is the reason, this is the problem they're facing through, but these are the capabilities they have. Because of these plans in place, we could see the assumptions has been built in such a way that we could see the company is going to give an IRR maybe in the next 6-7 years, they will pay off everything. So that is very, very important to seek the investor confidence. And not just that, when I say realistic, because it is also subjected to due diligence. Even for a quick strap fund, which I said 3 weeks of a kind of a timeline, over there also they will do a physical visit to the enterprises, to the companies, and they will also check the books of accounts. So anything which is being disclosed in an unethical way gets struck off. So that is where we say that, when an advisor, whosoever does it, will always do a pre-due diligence. So they will guide it through,
Thanks, Avijit. I think the overall scenario to summarize is, as Ashish mentioned, that the survival and the revival strategy has to be planned into a business plan for 2 years. And of course, you need to incorporate the use of technology to really take care of the requirements that are going to come in the future, and to rationalize cost. But in order to actually get your action plan moving, you need to have access to fund, or probably if you have to have a merger or an opportunity to work an alliance with another company which has similar practices as you, would need a professional company or a hand-holding company who can step-by-step help you, like just over here Avijit offers that service. Thank you so much, gentlemen, Ashish and Avijit, for joining in, and I guess a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from this conversation. Thank you once again for joining in.